move to the debate session. So I guess you both could say there's definitely a lot in there for debate. But I guess for the first question, I'll throw to you, Dr. Bohr, in terms of the waste, which is an issue that's on a lot of people's minds, especially in Nevada right now. Is that something, if we consider ramping up construction of nuclear power plants dramatically, how would that be addressed? Is that something that could be feasibly addressed? And we'll give you each a minute and 30 seconds.
Well, first, it's primarily a political problem rather than a technical one to begin with. France is managing its used nuclear fuel, and so are many other countries. The key is recycling. Even if we don't do it in the next 10 or 20 years, eventually we will recycle that used fuel. So it needs to be stored safely and securely, but in a retrievable place where we can get at it. It's important to remember that nuclear waste is not harming anyone at the present time. 1.2 million people are dying in car accidents every year in this world, and nuclear waste is not hurting anyone. So why is it perceived to be this great serious risk? It's a total misconception, and it is misguided fear that we are afraid of the nuclear waste. It is easy to package, it is easy to contain, it is easy to make it secure. It's not a very large amount of stuff, and it's being put in 80-ton casks that nobody could possibly steal with any. You'd have to take over the United States of America in order to steal this stuff. So it's not a problem in that sense. And we do have the technical solutions to address it, and other countries are doing so quite adequately, and we're simply not following or studying. I guess we need to read the literature better. I mean, I think I have read the literature very well, in fact, and I know what France is doing, and I know what Japan is doing, and it's a way more advanced and effective than what we're doing here in the United States. We're 30 years behind these other countries.
Okay, I think Dr. Moore has a rather narrow conception of nuclear waste. First of all, we have 250 million tons of uranium mine waste that are mostly on Native American lands. And I'd like to correct that no one has died from nuclear energy production. The health literature shows that the lung cancer mortality among uranium miners, especially Navajo miners, non-smokers or light smokers, is more than three times that of the control population. And we've got 250 million tons of uranium mill tailings all over the West. And that's just in this country when we're importing most of the uranium that is used in nuclear power plants today. France has not solved the waste problem, and I'd like you to address the specifics in the next 1.5 minutes that you have, if you care to answer. The high-level waste, which contains most of the radioactivity, are piling up in Normandy. The French are just as allergic to having nuclear waste in their backyard as anybody else. They don't have a repository program. In fact, they don't have a functioning repository. They've got a repository program that the public has vigorously opposed, just like in this country. You may call it political, but that's life in a democracy. If people don't like nuclear waste in their neighborhoods, then this is a problem for those who would want to build nuclear power plants. Moreover, I disagree vigorously. I think Yucca Mountain is the worst single site that has been investigated in this country, and I say that as somebody who supports a repository program for existing nuclear wastes.
Time's up. As a follow-up question, you mentioned nuclear reprocessing, which partly brings up issues which are also on a lot of people's minds of proliferation, and especially as we get to a sort of global solution for carbon-free energy. Are there proliferation concerns with the spread of nuclear energy across the planet?
Well, as Dr. Makhijani has referred to, there is a slight overlap between nuclear energy production and the risk of proliferation. But these days it is indeed slight, because now that centrifuge technology has been invented, it is so much easier to make a nuclear weapon with enriched uranium produced in centrifuges with no nuclear reactor involved. I don't think the reference to Iran was fair, because Iran is using centrifuge technology to enrich uranium. They say it's for a nuclear reactor's fuel, but they could use it to make a weapon. But it has nothing to do with whether there is a nuclear reactor there or not. The other process of extracting plutonium from used nuclear fuel is much more complicated and dangerous. So anybody who is contemplating building a nuclear weapon in a clandestine fashion is going to use centrifuge technology, which is not related to nuclear fuel. The point about France not having solved the problem, I don't really understand. A deep repository is the final solution for the fission products that have been vitrified, that is embedded in glass. where they will remain for thousands and hundreds of thousands of years if we want them to, and in a deep geological storage. We don't have any use for those particular materials at this time. But 95% of the used fuel which is being recycled is going back to make power again and to make more fission products, and that process can be done over and over again until all the uranium has been burned. It would be foolish to do otherwise. Seems to me that is a solution to the problem. I don't see how it is not.
Okay, this is completely wrong, that 95% is being reused again and again. Let me give you the numbers. What's actually in spent fuel? There's 94% uranium-238. There's 1% uranium-235. There's 1% plutonium, and there's 4% fission products. That's by weight. The fission products, which are 4%, are piling up. The 94%, which is uranium-238, is not a fuel and cannot be reused as a fuel in existing light water reactors. You need a system of breeder reactors to use that at least substantially. We don't have a system of breeder reactors. We've spent $100 billion trying to perfect breeder reactors and reprocessing for breeder reactors worldwide and failed. Now, Ralph Bennett at Idaho National Lab says we would need, and he supports breeder reactors, we would need hundreds of billions of dollars to develop breeder reactors to reuse that uranium, and it won't be available till the end of the century. For your information, most of the uranium that is recovered in France is piling up in France, and a small part is sent to Russia for re-enrichment. For your information also, uranium enrichment is very much part of the nuclear power business, and centrifuges are part of the nuclear power business, and they're part of the proliferation risk. And as a dramatic example, most recent of the risk of reprocessing, that's where North Korea got its weapon plutonium from a reprocessing plant.
I want to, moving slightly beyond the waste and proliferation concerns, I want to get back to this question of cost, which is an interesting one. Obviously, there are many carbon-free technologies out there, and it's a question of, with limited resources, where can we best direct our efforts? So I guess I'll ask you first, Dr. Makhijani. What's the best way to get a handle on how nuclear compares when you tally up all the concerns? Because you also mentioned wind and solar would need some sort of national smart grid, which seems like it should be included in the cost. So is there a way to sort of fairly account for the cost of nuclear versus wind, solar versus efficiency versus other sources?
Well, it's not all versus. See, the choice is, are we going to do business in the centralized electricity generation way and leave the consumption end in a sort of almost a technical anarchic mode, have no rules for developers, anybody can do whatever they want, and we go on supplying the electrons whenever anybody flips the switch? We need a smart grid to do the cheapest thing that there is today, efficiency. And this morning's hearing in the Senate Energy Committee, there was a lot of discussion about that. The smart grid is not part of a renewable energy system alone. I'll give you an example. The average house has 58,000 BTU per square foot per year. Hanover House in New Hampshire, which was built efficiently, has an energy footprint for getting energy from the outside of 8,300 BTU per year. When you have that kind of energy footprint, and it is in President Obama's energy plan that there will be zero net energy houses by 2030. When you have that, you actually need a smart grid to manage those kinds of systems. Now, when you talk about cost, the cost of wind energy, as I said, is coming down and is lower than nuclear. It's about 8 to 10, 11 cents, depending on where you build the turbine. Concentrating solar power is 11, 12, 13, 14 cents, depending on who you ask. 14 cents with storage. Solar photovoltaics will cost you 20, 25 cents. Southern California Edison is doing a 250 megawatt project. Don't talk about Germany and solar. They're a damp, cloudy country. Let's talk about the United States, where we have the Southwest.